The sun rose over London on a cool spring morning. The sky was clear blue with only a few white clouds. It was a special day that many people had been waiting for. Outside Westminster Abbey, thousands of people stood behind barriers. They had been there since early morning, some even camping overnight. They all wanted to see the same thing: Prince William and Kate arriving for the coronation. Inside the ancient building, workers rushed to make final checks. They fixed the red carpet that ran down the center aisle. They placed fresh flowers on the stone pillars. The air smelled of polish, flowers, and history. Westminster Abbey had seen many royal events over hundreds of years. Today would add another important chapter to its story. In a private room at the back of the Abbey, Prince William stood looking at himself in a tall mirror. He wore a dark uniform with gold buttons and medals on his chest. His face looked serious. This was the day he had been preparing for his whole life. He took a deep breath and straightened his shoulders. "You look ready," said a soft voice behind him. William turned to see Kate walking into the room. She wore a beautiful dress the color of the sea. Small diamonds sparkled in her hair. She looked calm, but William could see she was nervous too. "Are the children ready?" William asked. "George is helping Charlotte with her flowers. Louis is still having trouble with his outfit," Kate said with a small smile. "He keeps asking why he can't wear his dinosaur shoes instead." William laughed. It felt good to laugh on such a serious day. Some things never change, even on Coronation Day. Outside the room, they could hear the growing sounds of the Abbey filling with people. Important guests from around the world were taking their seats. Kings and queens, presidents and prime ministers, all dressed in their finest clothes. Regular people who had done good things for their communities were there too. The old Abbey had room for everyone. An official in a black suit knocked softly on the door. "Your Royal Highnesses, it's time to gather the children. We begin in 20 minutes." William and Kate looked at each other. Kate reached out and straightened William's collar, a small gesture they had shared hundreds of times before. "The next time we walk back through these doors, everything will be different," William said quietly. Kate took his hand. "But we'll still be us. That won't change." They walked together to find their children. In a small side room, Prince George stood tall in his own smaller version of formal clothes. At 10 years old, he already understood the importance of today. Princess Charlotte was helping a palace worker fix ribbons in her hair. Prince Louis was jumping up and down, full of energy that couldn't be contained by the formal occasion. "Daddy, will I have to sit still the whole time?" Louis asked, his eyes wide. William bent down to his son's level. "Just try your best. Remember what we practiced." The family stood together for a moment, away from all the cameras and eyes that would soon be watching their every move. They were just a family of 5, taking a quiet minute before stepping into history. "Ready?" William asked, looking at each of them. They nodded, even little Louis. Kate squeezed William's hand one more time. Outside, the bells of Westminster began to ring, their deep sounds rolling across London. The crowds cheered louder. Inside, the orchestra began to play the first notes of music. It was time. The great wooden doors would soon open, and the future of the royal family would step forward together, ready to show the world what the next generation would bring. The great wooden doors of Westminster Abbey swung open. A hush fell over the crowd inside. The music grew louder as Prince William and Kate stepped into view. They walked slowly, matching each other's steps. Behind them came Prince George, his young face serious. Princess Charlotte held a small bouquet of white flowers. Prince Louis walked carefully, trying hard not to fidget. As they moved down the long aisle, people turned to watch. Many smiled. Some had tears in their eyes. This was more than just a royal ceremony. It was a moment when the future of the country was on display for all to see. "They look so young," whispered an old lady to her neighbor. "I remember when William was just a small boy." The family reached the front of the Abbey where the Archbishop waited. He wore long white and gold robes and held an ancient book. He smiled warmly at William and Kate. "The world watches today," the Archbishop said in a clear voice that carried through the abbey. "But this is also a family moment, a time when a son and father, a husband and wife, take on new duties for their nation." William looked to the side where his father sat. King Charles nodded at his son, his eyes proud. It had been 2 years since Charles became king, but health problems had made him decide to pass some duties to William sooner than planned. The ceremony began with songs sung by a choir of children, dressed in red and white. Their voices filled the high ceiling of the abbey. Kate reached for Louis's hand when she saw him starting to sway to the music. Charlotte stood straight, watching everything with wide eyes. George stood next to his father, copying his serious expression. Then came the most important part. William knelt before the Archbishop. The old man placed a circle of gold on a red pillow. It wasn't the main crown that would stay with King Charles, but a special coronet that showed William's new role. "With this coronet, you take on new duties," said the Archbishop. "Do you promise to serve your people with honesty, fairness, and love?" William's voice was strong and clear. "I do so promise." The Archbishop placed the coronet on William's head. The gold caught the light from the tall windows. At that moment, the sun broke through the clouds outside, sending colored light through the stained glass windows. Next, Kate stepped forward. She knelt gracefully, her blue dress spreading around her. The Archbishop placed a smaller golden circlet on her head. It was set with blue stones that matched her dress. "In partnership and wisdom, will you support both your husband and your nation?" asked the Archbishop. "I will," Kate said, her voice soft but steady. When they both stood, the abbey erupted in cheers. Even in this formal place, people couldn't hold back their joy. Little Louis clapped his hands over his ears at the noise, making people near him smile. An old lady in the royal box dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Queen Elizabeth had been gone for 3 years now, but many still thought of her on days like this. She would have been proud to see her grandson taking this step. The family turned to face the crowd. Something about them had changed. They stood taller, their faces more serious. The weight of their new roles was visible now. As they began to walk back down the aisle, the music swelled again. Outside, the bells rang louder. The crowds that had waited all morning cheered when they saw the news on their phones. "It is done," people said to each other. "The next generation has stepped forward." But this was just the beginning. The real test would come next, when William and Kate would step out onto the balcony of Buckingham Palace to greet the thousands waiting to see them in their new roles. After the ceremony, the royal family rode in shiny black cars from Westminster Abbey to Buckingham Palace. Police on motorcycles led the way. The streets were packed with people waving flags and taking pictures. Some threw flowers onto the road. Children sat on their parents' shoulders to get a better view. Inside the first car, William touched the golden coronet on his head. It felt strange and heavy. Next to him, Kate smiled at the crowds but looked tired. The children sat in the back seat. Prince George waved politely at the people. Princess Charlotte copied him. Prince Louis pressed his face against the window, making funny faces at the crowds. "Louis, remember what we talked about," Kate said gently. Louis sat back in his seat. "But they liked it, Mummy." They were laughing. William caught Kate's eye, and they both tried not to smile. Even on this big day, Louis was still just a little boy who wanted to have fun. The car drove through the tall gates of Buckingham Palace. The building looked huge and grand with its cream-colored walls and hundreds of windows. Staff in red and gold uniforms stood ready. They bowed as William and Kate stepped out of the car. Inside the palace, the family was taken to a special room to rest before appearing on the famous balcony. Servants brought drinks and small sandwiches. Louis grabbed 3 and stuffed one in his mouth. "Slow down," Charlotte told her brother. "That's not how princes eat." "I'm hungry," Louis said with his mouth full. "Ceremonies make me hungry." An old butler smiled as he poured tea for Kate. "Your Royal Highness, If I may say so, you reminded me of Queen Elizabeth today. She had the same calm way about her." Kate thanked him with a warm smile. This was one of the nicest things anyone could say to her. William stood by a tall window, looking out at the crowds. More and more people were filling the area in front of the palace. There were thousands of them now, waiting to see the balcony appearance. A palace official in a dark suit came into the room. "Your Royal Highnesses, we're ready whenever you are. The King and Queen are already in position." William nodded and turned to his family. "Ready for round two." They walked through long hallways with red carpets and paintings of kings and queens from long ago. The children's footsteps echoed on the wooden floors. They reached a set of tall glass doors that led to the balcony. King Charles and Queen Camilla were already there. Charles put his hand on William's shoulder. "You did well, son," he said quietly. "Very well indeed." The doors opened. Bright sunlight and the roar of the crowd hit them all at once. The noise was like nothing they had ever heard. Thousands of people filled the streets and park in front of the palace. They waved flags and cheered so loudly it seemed the ground shook. The royal family stepped forward. William and Kate stood in the center, with their children in front of them. King Charles and Queen Camilla stood to one side. Together, they waved to the crowds. A group of planes flew overhead, leaving trails of red, white, and blue smoke, the colors of the British flag. The crowd cheered even louder. Louis jumped up and down with excitement. This time, no one told him to stop. Cameras flashed from every direction. This picture would be on the front page of newspapers all around the world tomorrow. It showed something important, not just a ceremony, but a family ready to lead together. As they waved, Kate leaned close to William's ear. "Look at them all," she said. "They're not just here for the crown. They're here for the future." William nodded. The future was what today was all about, and the future was standing right here on this balcony. After the balcony appearance, the royal family went back inside Buckingham Palace. There was a big lunch for 500 special guests. The huge dining room was set with gold plates and crystal glasses. Flowers from royal gardens filled the tables. William and Kate sat at the main table with King Charles and Queen Camilla. The children were taken to eat in another room with other royal children and their nannies. Louis was happy about this. He could eat without having to remember all the rules. "I think Louis is relieved to escape," Kate whispered to William, watching their youngest son skip away. William smiled. "Can't blame him. I remember how hard these formal lunches were when I was his age." People from all over the world came to shake hands with William and Kate. Leaders from different countries, famous people, and regular citizens who had done good things for their communities. Each person bowed or curtsied before speaking to them. An old man with many medals on his chest approached their table. He walked slowly with a cane. William stood up to greet him. "Sir James," William said warmly. "Thank you for coming today." The old man had tears in his eyes. "I served your grandmother for 60 years, he said. "And now I've lived to see you take your place. She would be so proud." While they ate, a small orchestra played soft music. Servants in red uniforms moved quietly around the room, filling glasses and bringing food. The meal had 5 courses, with dishes representing different parts of Britain. Kate noticed William was barely eating. "Are you all right?" she asked quietly. "Just taking it all in," he replied. "Everything feels different now." Across the room, photographers took pictures. They tried to be quiet, but their cameras clicked constantly. Every move William and Kate made was being recorded for history. After the meal, there was one more important task. William and Kate needed to sign their names in the official royal book. This book held the signatures of every royal ceremony for hundreds of years. They were taken to a quiet room with dark wood walls and heavy red curtains. A single desk stood in the center with the large leather-bound book open on it. The pages were yellowish and thick. The royal record keeper, an older woman in a dark blue suit, stood beside the desk. "Your Royal Highnesses," she said with a small bow. This book contains the signature of your ancestor King George III from 1760, Queen Victoria from 1837, and your grandmother Queen Elizabeth I from 1952. William picked up the special pen made of gold. He signed his name in the book with careful, steady letters. Then he handed the pen to Kate. She paused for a moment before signing her name next to his. "It's official now," the record keeper said. "Your names are part of history." As they left the room, William's phone buzzed. He checked it and smiled. "Harry sent a message," he told Kate. "He's watching from California. Says he's proud." Kate squeezed his hand. It had been years since William and his brother were close, but today seemed to be healing old wounds. Back in the main palace, they could hear music starting. A special concert was beginning in the gardens. Thousands of people had tickets to attend. Famous singers and bands would perform royal favorites and new songs written just for today. "Should we check on the children before joining the concert?" Kate asked. William nodded. "And maybe see if we can sneak Louis a second dessert. He's been so good today, all things considered." As they walked through the palace hallways, staff members bowed and smiled. These were people who had known William since he was a child. Now they were bowing to him not just as a prince, but as the next leader of their country. William and Kate found their children in a special playroom in the palace. George was reading a book about kings and queens. Charlotte was drawing a picture of the coronation. Louis was building a tower with blocks, wearing his coronet slightly crooked on his head. "Look, Daddy, I'm being royal," Louis said when he saw his parents. William laughed and fixed the small golden circle on his son's head. "Yes, you are. And you've all been very royal today. We're proud of you." "Can we go home soon?" Charlotte asked. "My shoes hurt." Kate smiled with understanding. "Not yet, sweetheart. We have the concert next, then the parade. But you can change your shoes." A nanny brought more comfortable shoes for Charlotte. Another helper fixed George's hair and straightened Louis's shirt, which had become untucked. The children were used to this, being fixed and tidied before going out in public again. "The concert is starting soon," William said. "Who wants to hear some music?" They walked together through a secret door that led from the palace to the gardens. No crowds could see them here. For a moment, they were just a normal family taking a walk. Louis ran ahead, pretending to be an airplane. Charlotte pointed out flowers she liked. George walked beside his father, asking quiet questions about the day's events. The royal gardens were huge, with tall trees and perfect green grass. At one end, a large stage had been built. Colorful lights hung in the trees. Thousands of people sat in chairs on the lawn, waiting for the show to begin. The royal family had a special area at the front. King Charles and Queen Camilla were already there. They smiled as William and Kate arrived with the children. "There you are," King Charles said. "The music is about to start." The crowd stood up when they saw the royal family. They clapped and cheered. William waved, then sat down with Kate and the children. Louis bounced in his seat, excited about the music. The first performer was a famous pop singer. She sang a new song written just for today, called "Crown of Tomorrow." The lyrics were about new beginnings and hope for the future. Many people in the crowd held up their phone lights, making the garden look like it was full of stars. When the song ended, Louis clapped so hard his coronet fell off. Kate caught it and placed it back on his head with a smile. Next came an old rock band that had been playing since William was a little boy. William leaned over to George. "Your grandmother loved this band," he told his son. "She used to play their music in the car." George looked surprised. The Queen liked rock music. She liked all sorts of things people never knew about, William said with a smile. As the concert went on, the sun began to set. Lights came on all around the garden. It looked magical, like something from a fairy tale. Workers brought blankets for the royal family as the air got cooler. Louis fell asleep leaning against Kate. Charlotte's eyes were getting heavy too. Only George stayed wide awake, watching everything carefully. "Should we take them back?" Kate whispered to William. William looked at his sleeping son. "Let's stay a bit longer. This is their history too, even if they're sleeping through it." The final act was a choir of 500 children from schools across Britain. They sang a song about dreams and the future. Their young voices filled the night air. Many people in the audience, including Queen Camilla, wiped tears from their eyes. As the last notes of the song faded away, fireworks began to explode in the sky above the palace. Red, blue, gold, and silver lights burst over London. Lewis woke up with a jump and pointed at the sky. "Look, the sky is celebrating us," he said. William put his arm around Kate's shoulders. "Not just us," he said quietly. "It's celebrating what comes next. The future we'll build together." The next morning, London was still buzzing with excitement. The streets had been cleaned, but signs of yesterday's big event were everywhere. Shop windows displayed pictures of William and Kate. Newspaper stands showed their faces on every front page. Inside Kensington Palace, the royal family was having a quiet breakfast. They wore normal clothes now, no crowns or fancy outfits. Lewis was eating cereal and making race car noises with his spoon. Charlotte was carefully spreading jam on her toast. George was reading a newspaper article about yesterday's events. "Look, we're on every page," George said, showing his parents. William glanced at the headlines. "Crown of Tomorrow." Read one. "A new royal chapter begins," said another. There were pictures of the ceremony, the balcony scene, and the concert. "Did I really fall asleep?" Louis asked with a frown. "Right in the middle of the best song," Charlotte teased. "You were snoring." "I was not," Louis protested. Kate smiled at her children. "Today is a rest day," she told them. "No duties, no cameras, just us." But even as she said it, William's phone rang. He answered it and spoke quietly for a few minutes. "That was Grandpa," he said when he hung up. "There's been a change of plan. We need to go to Scotland tomorrow." Kate looked surprised. "Scotland? Why so soon?" "The Scottish First Minister wants to have a special ceremony at Edinburgh Castle to show Scotland's support for the new arrangement," William explained. "Dad thinks it's important. We go right away." This was the first real test of their new roles. The United Kingdom had 4 parts: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Each part needed to feel important and respected. "Can we ride the royal train?" George asked excitedly. William nodded. "Yes, we'll take the train tonight and arrive in the morning." Later that day, William and Kate sat in William's new office. It had once belonged to his grandmother. The walls were lined with books. A large desk sat near the window with views of the palace gardens. "The Scottish trip is just the beginning," William said, looking at a calendar on his computer. "Next month we go to Wales, then Northern Ireland. After that, there's the Commonwealth Tour, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, India." Kate touched his hand. "One day at a time," she said gently. "We've been preparing for this for years." There was a knock at the door. A palace worker came in with a large red box. This was the famous red box that contained important government papers. For many years, these boxes had gone to the Queen, then to King Charles. Now some would come to William too. "Your first red box, Your Royal Highness," the worker said, placing it on the desk. After the worker left, William stared at the box. Inside were papers he needed to read and understand: new laws, foreign policy issues, government decisions that needed royal approval. "Should I leave you to it?" Kate asked. William shook his head. "No, stay. We do this together." He opened the box and took out the first paper. It was a letter from the Prime Minister, welcoming William to his new role and outlining the government's plans for the coming year. As William read, Kate looked out the window. She could see their children playing in the garden with their nanny. Louis was chasing a ball. Charlotte was picking flowers. George was talking to a palace guard, probably asking questions about his uniform. They were still just children, but their lives had changed forever yesterday. One day, George would sit where William sat now. The red boxes would come to him. "What are you thinking about?" William asked, noticing Kate's quiet mood. "About time," she said. "How fast it goes. Yesterday I was a normal girl from a normal family. Now I'm watching my husband read state papers, and my son is learning how to be king." William put down the papers and joined her at the window. Together, they watched their children play in the spring sunshine, still innocent and carefree despite the weight of history that now rested on their family's shoulders. "We'll make sure they have time to just be children," William promised. "That's one tradition I think we can change." That evening, the royal train waited at a private platform in London. It was dark blue with the royal seal on each car. Inside, it looked like a small luxury hotel. There were bedrooms, a dining room, and even a small office where William could work. The children were excited about the train ride. They ran through the narrow hallways, looking in every room. "Can I sleep on the top bunk?" Louis asked, jumping up and down. "You can have whichever bed you like," Kate told him. "But remember, it's just for one night." As the train pulled away from the station, William stood by the window watching London disappear. The city lights faded as they moved into the countryside. This train had carried his grandmother for many years as she traveled around Britain. Now it was his turn. In the dining car, a table was set for dinner. The family sat together as the train rocked gently from side to side. The chef had prepared simple food the children liked: roast chicken, vegetables, and ice cream for dessert. "When we get to Scotland, will I have to wear a kilt?" Louis asked, his mouth full of chicken. George laughed. "Only if you want all the Scottish people to laugh at your skinny legs." "My legs are not skinny," Louis protested, standing up to show everyone. "Both of you, that's enough," Kate said firmly, but with a smile. "And yes, Louis, the boys will wear kilts for the ceremony at Edinburgh Castle. It shows respect for Scottish traditions." After dinner, the children were put to bed in their bunks. The train moved through the night, heading north. The gentle rocking motion helped them fall asleep quickly. William and Kate sat in the small sitting room, looking over papers about the next day's events. "The First Minister wants us to visit a children's hospital after the castle ceremony," Kate said. "And there's a lunch with local business leaders." William nodded, but he looked tired. The last few days had been long and full of emotion. "Are you okay?" Kate asked. "You've been quiet tonight." William put down the papers. "I keep thinking about what my mother would say if she could see us now, if she could see her grandchildren." Princess Diana had died when William was just 15 years old. She never got to meet Kate or the children. "She would be so proud of you," Kate said softly. "And she would love the children, especially Louis. He has her sense of fun." William smiled. "Yes, he does, doesn't he? And Charlotte has her style. George has her kindness." A staff member knocked on the door. "Excuse me, Your Royal Highnesses. We'll be arriving in Edinburgh in about 6 hours. Would you like a wake-up call at 6 a.m.? William thanked him and said yes. When they were alone again, Kate yawned. "We should try to sleep," she said. "Tomorrow will be another long day." As they got ready for bed, the train crossed the border into Scotland. Outside the windows, the landscape was dark, but they could feel the train climbing into the hills. By morning, they would be in Edinburgh, Scotland's beautiful capital city. William checked on the children one last time before going to bed. All three were fast asleep. Louis had kicked off his blankets as usual. William covered him again and smiled. Back in their compartment, Kate was already in bed, reading a last-minute briefing about the people they would meet tomorrow. "Anything I should know?" William asked as he got into bed beside her. "Just that the Scottish people are excited to welcome us," Kate said. The First Minister says it's the biggest event in Edinburgh since the Queen's visit in 2022. William turned off the light. The gentle rhythm of the train and the darkness outside made it feel like they were in their own small world, moving through the night toward whatever tomorrow would bring. Morning light poured through the train windows. The royal family woke to find mountains and green fields outside. They were in Scotland. Edinburgh, with its famous castle on a hill, could be seen in the distance. "Wake up, everyone," Lewis shouted, running through the train. "We're almost there." The family gathered for breakfast in the dining car. The chef had made porridge with Scottish honey and fresh berries. Lewis poked at his porridge with a spoon. "It looks like mud," he whispered to Charlotte. "It's traditional Scottish food," Charlotte told him. "Try it with honey." Outside the train windows, people lined the tracks. They waved flags and held up phones to take pictures as the royal train passed by. William and the children waved back. "They'd been waiting since early morning," said a staff member. "Some of them have been here since 5 a.m. The train pulled into Edinburgh's main station. A red carpet had been laid out on the platform. Important Scottish officials waited in a line to greet them. "Remember, best behavior," Kate reminded the children as they prepared to leave the train. George straightened his kilt. Charlotte checked her hair. Lewis practiced his bow. When they stepped off the train, bagpipes began to play. The sound filled the station. A man in full Scottish dress presented Kate with a bouquet of thistles, Scotland's national flower. "Welcome to Scotland, Your Royal Highnesses," said the First Minister, a woman in a smart blue suit. "We are honored to have you here on your first official visit." From the station, they drove through Edinburgh in a line of black cars. The streets were packed with people waving Scottish and British flags. Signs said, "Welcome William and Kate," and "Scotland's friends." The cars climbed the steep hill to Edinburgh Castle. It was a huge stone fortress that had stood for hundreds of years. From its walls, you could see all of Edinburgh and the sea beyond. Inside the castle, a special room had been prepared. It was the Great Hall, with high stone walls and colorful banners hanging from the ceiling. It looked like something from a story about knights and kings. Important people from all over Scotland waited inside. Politicians, business leaders, teachers, doctors, and community workers. They stood as William and Kate entered with their children. The First Minister led William and Kate to 2 special chairs at the front of the room. They were old wooden chairs with the Scottish lion carved on them. These chairs were used by Scottish rulers for 500 years, the First Minister explained. Today, they represent the friendship between Scotland and the Crown. A man in traditional Scottish dress stepped forward. He held a large old book bound in leather. This was the Stone Book, a record of important Scottish events going back hundreds of years. "Today we add your names to our history," he said. He opened the book to a new page. William and Kate signed their names. Then, to everyone's surprise, the First Minister invited the children to sign too. George carefully wrote his name in neat letters. Charlotte added her name next to his. Lewis made a small mark with a pen, helped by Kate. The room filled with applause. This was more than just a ceremony. It was Scotland's way of saying they accepted the new generation of royal leaders. An old man at the back of the hall wiped a tear from his eye. "I saw the Queen here in 1953, he told the person next to him. "And now I've seen her great-grandchildren." Life goes on. Outside the castle, Scottish dancers performed in the courtyard. They moved in circles to the sound of bagpipes. Lewis watched with his mouth open, amazed by the swirling kilts and fast steps. "Can I learn to do that?" he asked William. "If you like," William said. "Your grandmother had Scottish blood, you know. So do you." Lewis stood a little taller. "Then I should definitely learn," he said seriously. 2 weeks later, the royal family was back at Kensington Palace. The busy days of ceremonies, trips, and public appearances had finally slowed down. Life was starting to find a new normal. William sat in his office, looking at photos from the past weeks. There were pictures from Westminster Abbey, from Buckingham Palace, from Edinburgh Castle. In each one, he could see how his family had grown into their new roles. Kate came in with 2 cups of tea. She put one on William's desk and sat down with the other. "The children are finally asleep," she said. "Lewis kept talking about Scotland. He wants to know when we can go back." William smiled. He made quite an impression on the First Minister. She sent him a child-sized kilt as a gift. They sat quietly for a moment, enjoying the rare, peaceful time together. Outside the window, the palace gardens were dark and still. The busy sounds of London seemed far away. "I had a call from the Prime Minister today," William said. "Parliament wants us to visit hospitals in each part of the country, to show unity after all the ceremonies." Kate nodded. "That makes sense. When do we start?" "Next month. We'll begin in Wales, then Northern Ireland, back to Scotland, and finish in England." Their quiet moment was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. It was George in his pajamas. "I can't sleep," he said. "Can I ask you something?" William waved him in. George sat on the couch next to his mother. "What's on your mind?" William asked. George looked serious. "When I'm king someday, will I have to do everything you and Grandpa do? All the ceremonies and trips and meetings?" William and Kate exchanged a look. They had known this question would come eventually. "Some things will be the same," William said carefully. "The important traditions that connect us to our history. But other things might be different. Each king or queen shapes the role in their own way. Your father is making changes from how your great-grandmother did things," Kate added. "And you'll make your own changes when it's your turn." George thought about this. "So I can keep some parts and change others. That's how the monarchy has survived for so long," William explained, "by keeping what works and changing what needs to change." This seemed to satisfy George. He hugged both his parents and went back to bed. "He's thinking about the future already," Kate said softly. "He's always been that way," William replied, "always watching and thinking." Later that night, William stood at the window of their bedroom. The lights of London spread out before him. Somewhere in the city, tomorrow's newspapers were being printed. They would have stories about the coronation, about Scotland, about what might come next. Kate joined him at the window. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About all those people," William said, looking at the city lights. "Millions of lives going on out there. Most of them will never set foot in a palace or wear a crown. But they're the reason any of this matters." Kate took his hand. "That's why your grandmother was loved. She never forgot that." "I don't want to forget it either," William said. "No matter how many ceremonies or fancy titles, it's about them, about making their lives better." The next morning, the family had breakfast together before the children went to school. It was almost like a normal family meal, except for the palace around them and the security team waiting outside. Lewis had jam on his face. Charlotte was reading a book while eating her toast. George was telling his father about a history project at school. As William looked around the table at his family, he felt a sense of peace. The weight of the crown was heavy, but he didn't carry it alone. Together, they would lead the next generation forward, honoring the past while building a better future. And that was the greatest responsibility and the greatest privilege of all.